Welcome. These will be my thoughts on The Walking Dead Season 6, Episode 1, First Time Again. The episode is rated TVMA, so with this video there will be spoilers for the Walking Dead live-action shows leading up to and including this episode and another episode that I absolutely loved. So I wanted to start by briefly noting, Arts Cafe, longtime subscriber and friend of mine, thankfully told me before I watched this episode something that I understand confused other viewers the first time they watched it. The parts in black and white are past and the parts in color are present, which I guess means that at least one character is viewing the world in black and white, if American History X is anything to go off. And yeah, I think that does lead us into, so I'm gonna start with some general thoughts and then get into scene by scene. Once again, yeah, they are 6 for 6 of fantastic season openers. Yeah, so far there has not been an episode of I've only watched one season of Fear the Walking Dead, but yeah, that and the first 5 seasons of this, and then this episode, love all of them. And I especially really appreciated how they follow up on the explosive finale of season 5. Different people have different reactions to Rick and his actions there, understandably so. And I felt like they did a really good job exploring that. Like, of course, not everyone was going to be on board with him. I think Carter is his name, like, directly says, you waved a gun around, like, now we're just supposed to trust you. Makes a point. And yeah, as with some of the others, it hits the season openers. This hits the ground running. We are immediately shown the huge mass of walkers, trucker walkers, in the one area. And yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing more of, because by the end of this episode, that has not quite been resolved, and there is some sense of, there's that siren, which I loved, that right after, yeah, as the end credits start, the siren actually plays, not for terribly long. I'm not even sure it's more than like 2 or 3 seconds, but it is still, or maybe it's just over black screen right before the end credits, but it's there after the last image we see of the episode, the last thing that isn't a black screen. And I'm really looking forward to finding out why there is a siren going off. I don't know, because who back in Alexandria would do that? Could it be an off-screen, like someone trying to take over Alexandria or destroy Alexandria? Maybe. I'm genuinely, I'm not sure, but I'm very excited to find out. And I, you know, because I understood it, I did think it really worked. The thing with, because I knew going in about the black and white means past thing. Yeah, I thought it was very clever to have this thing of like, okay, this is right after the, like, we even see Tara be told what happened. We see, you know, yeah, things that obviously this is right after the very, very ending. But because we also see the present day, that means they can get us, into, because like they do discover the trucker walkers in in one of the black and white segments. But because we also have the present day scenes, that means that we are, they're able to do more plot. And yeah, I think that does cover yeah, so I really liked yeah, as usual, Eugene is so great. You know, he's just the smile when he sees Sarah's okay, just so sweet. And then, oh, you better get a guy to protect us. It's like, oh, somebody should tell her. And I think that covers that scene. I guess that might. Okay, yeah, these are not going to be in order because I'm realizing I definitely don't remember the order. I thought it worked really well how the priest, Rick does not really trust him. And, yeah, the thing about how he says he wants to join them, and Rick says, anybody else, please, anyone at all. And the thing about burial, he does not want the murderer buried there. And then Deanna does the classic politician jump scare. And I do appreciate the way that she is supporting Rick, which I also, it's compelling both from the standpoint of, I mean, she didn't always, understandably so, but I also don't know if that, like, for now at least, she is trusting him, and that helps at least some of the Alexandrians. But Carter still goes against Rick, plans, tries to get the others to join him in killing Rick. So that's, yeah, it is not quite enough for everyone in Alexandria that Deanna is trusting and supporting Rick. And, we have already seen she can be quite the politician. So I wouldn't rule out that at some point it might change. And I think that does. Yeah, I thought it worked really well with okay, so I'm trying to remember everybody's names. I think his name is Ron, the kid. Following, and then he's like, I wanted to see where you're burying, And that was so cool when they're like shoving walkers off the edge, like so cool. Oh, and that one walker that's like moving between like there's a truck and it's like tearing off the skin from the face, so gnarly. And I think, yeah, and the thing about, Ron is like, you know what? I'm starting over. I mean, I'm going home. And then Rick is like, I don't want you out here. And for a second, I'm like, I mean, he did say he was going home. I'm kidding. Obviously, yeah, as Rick goes on to explain, it's not safe for Ron to be on his own out there. And I guess that I'll talk some more about, so, yeah, he talks to, we have a little bit of a, father parenting versus mother parenting, because she's like, listen, Rick, if you're the one telling him, he's not going to listen. You can't talk to him like that. I'll talk to Ron and Sam. I support you. I'm learning how to shoot. I will teach them. And it's one of those things where sometimes, and I think it works so well that they are both parents. I don't think the scene would have worked anywhere near as well if one of them had not been. So they do both have experience raising, their offspring and like teaching important life lessons. Rick has managed to keep Carl alive all this time, and then yeah. Okay, so before I continue, it is very important that I acknowledge, that I underline, this is a progressive channel. We do not support the fucking bullshit of gender essentialism. That is not what I'm saying here. I'm talking about socialization. I'm talking about culture. And the good news is those things can be changed if enough people fight hard enough for it. And the people who have the most sway. But as it is, here in the West, a lot of cishet men are encouraged to be in charge, and it can really lead to stubbornness. And I'm sometimes guilty of it too, you know? It has been a struggle for me to stop being so stubborn. But basically, yeah, we're told that we're the ones in the right, and if you're told that when it's not justified, that can lead to that kind of stubbornness. That, like, ideally, I would argue we should try to raise kids and encourage young people and such towards thinking things through, and then once you feel like, okay, this is a watertight argument, there is no way that this is not what's right, then you just at that point you could say, okay, I believe I'm right, and you should still be willing to listen. And that's just something I've seen in person, and research evidence supporting a lot of women. They work much harder to be sure they're right about something before they really latch onto it and say, this is how it's going to have to be. And I absolutely agree with her in this scene. Clearly, Ron is not listening to Rick. Because, like, Rick is technically correct, the very best kind of correct, when he says it is not safe for Ron to be out there. He almost got killed. And I think that is... Yeah, right. I also kind of love how we're kind of just dropped in it in the very first scene of this episode. I had no fucking clue what was going on at first, but it was like, we have just enough. Like, okay, that's a lot of fucking walkers. The Alexandrians are going to need to do something about them. And clearly Rick has some sort of plan, and we get just enough detail about it. They're talking about, like, we have multiple groups. The walkers are gonna be lured to specific places and such. It's like, okay, and over the course of the episode, I did feel like I understand why, or not why, what the plan is. We understand from right away. This is definitely something that has to be dealt with, and it's so clever because, like, season 5, we really did feel like, okay, the big thing with Alexandria that Rick and his survivors are gonna have to deal with is the Alexandrians are not quite ready for this. Like, they're too sheltered. And by the end, it seems to me, at least, that a good chunk of the Alexandrians are on board. That Rick has proven that he is more likely, at least. Like, Carter is really the only holdout in this episode, at least. And the let's see, and then in this season, it's this episode, at least, I don't know how much of the season it's going to be, but yeah, it's like, well, the walls can hold a few walkers, but it cannot hold that many. And also, like, hypothetically, they could end up surrounded and run out of food and ammo. They would be unable to go out for supplies. So this is definitely something that needs dealing with. And I think that might cover the... Yeah, it was also so fucking cool when one of the trucks falls and, like, crushes... There's gotta be dozens of walkers down there. And I continue to really love Carol. The little thing, like, she's gonna watch them. She's gonna hang back. And the thing about, she's learning how to shoot. And then the thing about, are you a cop too? Why would you say that? I love her characterization and the acting performance there, because just, yeah, these little things, because it's like, oh, it's that easy to tell that I'm always watching? I should be more subtle then. And also really great to get Morgan back. He is one of my favorites on the show as well. He might also be my favorite Morgan, ahead of both Katarn and LaFay. And I think that does bring us to... Yeah, I thought they did a good job with Carter. Like, throughout the episode, every so often he will object or that sort of thing, and then, yeah, the two big moments are, of course, and I also really appreciate it. He is making sense when he objects. He's like, no, but what if they, he points on the map, and I forget the exact words, but the scene. And yeah, like, I'm sorry, when he said that, I was like, shit, that sounds like he has a good point. Like, he's not just like screaming, this won't work, without explaining himself. And yeah, so he talks to the others, trying to convince them that they should kick Rick's bucket. And yeah, poor Eugene, he means well. He's just like, he's not a spy, despite claiming earlier that he was in intelligence and more intelligent than Abraham. And yeah, he drops the thing, and then he accidentally stumbles into the... I'm glad that they left on the cutting room floor the part where he slips on a banana peel and an entire glass house collapses nearby. But seriously though, that's not a criticism. I gotta make a joke every so often, so this doesn't just become like dry analysis and such. Anyway, yeah, and that was also... it's such a great moment for Carter, because he goes up and he's like, well, now I have to kill him. And see, that's the thing. Once you've made the choice, this is borne out by research. I'm not speaking from experience, but so many have said the first time they kill someone, and in this case it's deciding to kill someone, that one was difficult, but after that it got easier. Like, not necessarily easy, and they might still be haunted by those they killed, but he has made up his mind about killing Rick. He's trying to talk the others into it. It's not that he's trying to figure out if he thinks it should be done. He's just like, well, I can't do it on my own, and I made up my mind. And now he sees Eugene, and he doesn't even try to talk Eugene into silence. He just points a gun at his face. And then Rick, the door's open. Well, this is awkward. Rick's right behind me, isn't he? And he's like, well, next time you're going to betray me, I guess set up some guards. And then, Carter doesn't even clock that, obviously, look, he's a cop. If he's walking that close to you and you're pointing a gun that he does not want you to be doing, of course he's going to disarm you. What else? And then he points the gun at Carter, and he later confesses to Morgan, would have been so easy. Then there wouldn't have been any more problems with him. So again, they are maintaining this, balancing act of, like, tactically with the trucks, Rick's idea seems to be the best. And the, part of the thing is also, like, with Carter, like, we understand why he objects, but they do need to act soon. So it is, but at the same time, we also do have the fact that, Rick, because, yes, Carter was conspiring, but, like, now knowing is half the battle. And if you just, like, he was about to fucking execute him, and yeah, then later, he is bitten, and Rick does try to, like, he covers his mouth and he says, don't scream. I said, don't scream. And then he stabs him in the brain. And it's this thing of, like, the argument, one could say, well, he was gonna turn, obviously. Like, hypothetically, we know that if you are bitten on the leg, you can survive it if it is amputated. But the face, like, there's no way. They're not gonna be able to save him. But on the other hand, like, it's not like Rick didn't want Carter dead, and maybe the people right there watching him do it know that. So that's also, Michonne did not say that much in this episode, but boy, did her eyes speak volumes. And let's see. I don't know, maybe I suppose she probably, again, not really a criticism. She didn't have that much to say in this episode. Maybe she took a partial vow of silence because her entry in the Telltale game series was not the best, which is like, I did a video on that. You can see exactly what I felt about. Like, that was a series that even when it wasn't like amazing, it was still like I'm happy I played all of them. If I still replayed games, you know, I might replay even, I still maintain the one I thought was the least was 400 days, but even that one is like, you know what, there's still some really great stuff in there. Anyway, I think that does bring us to the let's see, right, love all the character growth that Daryl has had over the course of the show. Like, he was such a loner at first, and now, like, not only does he think that that Rick is making mistakes, saying that they are not going to find more people for Alexandria, he tells him to his face and argues for it, and yeah, like, it's great to see, because like he really did just need to feel loved and seen, and that was something, Carol really helped with. So yeah, it's yeah, I miss Beth. Anyway, their relationship was also great, is what I'm saying. Anyway, that brings us to the I did really appreciate, I'm afraid I forget his name, but the guy who fucked up, and now Glenn does not exactly trust him, and he's like, you're not coming with. And then he's like, okay, you're going to hang back, and, you'll, yeah, there was basically a backup plan. And then he goes and saves life there. That was a really great, yeah, and that also does really show, because that was the thing. Like, he used to just abandon people, and now he doesn't abandon someone even when he is told to hang back. But it is also disobedience. He's going against an order made by Glenn. So yeah, I don't know exactly where he's going to land, but clearly he is now willing to really fight to keep others alive. And I quite appreciated the when I'm afraid I forget his, oh, was his name Heath, maybe. I um I think it might have been Heath. When, yeah, Heath is like, why are we following your orders? And the other guy's like, listen, you haven't been here. Trust me, this guy, he knows what he's talking about. Because that again is like, I mean, if he was up to his old shit, this is where he'd be like, Heath, you're right. Let's jump him. Like, maybe Glenn would be able to take out one of them. Would he be able to stop both of them? That, like, because remember, he wanted Glenn fucking dead to a like obsessive degree. So that's yeah. I really appreciate that. That's because that's also, people can change. It starts with making the decision. I'm not saying it's easy, and you might need help. There should be no shame in that. Individualism is bullshit. We need community. Anyway, you know what? I think this is a good time to briefly, let's see. There we go. Yeah. So yeah, and yeah. So they have to get they have to deal with certain of the walkers, and then it's like, oh shit, they were not where we thought they would be, and there were more of them than they had expected, and yeah. So okay, so the following video is not particularly relevant, but I'm trying to recommend a leftist YouTube video each video I do, and since it is Women's History Month, I'm trying to primarily recommend women. Emma Thorne's Facebook is a Wasteland for the Weird is excellent. And so I already talked about several of the female characters. Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, I meant to highlight that that's what I was doing. But yeah, I did think this episode had some really great stuff for the female characters. And oh, there was one more that I love the growth between, Tara and Maggie. This thing of, because, yeah, and Maggie's line, we were on opposite sides on the worst day of my life. And, now she really cares about Tara. And just, yeah, it's so, so great to see. And, yeah, I think that does. Yeah, I like that Eugene likes Heath's hair. And also we get a brief, Eugene still very much coded as being somewhere on the spectrum. And, Heath is like, this guy's kind of weird, but he's also not like, oh, fuck this guy. So, yeah, appreciate that because, like, listen, I literally don't know anyone on the left who says that you're not allowed to think that someone on the spectrum, like just don't be an asshole is really the thing. It's not about like you have to act as if there isn't any difference whatsoever. It's been a little while since I looked it up. But from what I recall, ADHD is considered on the spectrum, and I do have ADHD, and certainly I like when people make an effort to make sure that we understand each other, because sometimes, I communicate in either direction in a slightly different, at least slightly different way from neurotypicals. And that's, yeah, if you make that effort, or if you're too tired to, that's also fine. But, primarily just don't be an asshole, yeah. I think that is right. And if you need it to respect those of us on the spectrum, some of the greatest minds, at least appear to have been on the spectrum. And you don't have to take my word for it. You can look it up yourself. Shouldn't be necessary, but for some I know it is. Fundamentally, I think, we are all human beings. So let's try to work together. I think that does bring us to the... Yeah, and yeah, he's like, well, I can't let you in because I don't know you, dude. And he's like, but we've been on the road for a while, I don't know you, so you're on guard. No, that was her. And then she, she said maybe I could do the guard, and I said no, thank you. And then she left, and now she's not back. Which, I'm sorry, listen, I say it with love. That is such, yeah, he that is very autistic coded, very, very spectrum coded, at least. I don't know if it's specifically autistic, but, because it's like going into so much more detail and going over every single little thing. And that's also, I do that sometimes, I go over more detail than is necessary. Now, I think that does bring us to, right, I like that when Carter, he's like caught red-handed, about to put red on his hands, I guess, and then he's got red on him. Then the others are like, oh, that's all him. Like, Don't drag us into this. He tried to do that, and we were like, no. And like honestly, like hypothetically, if Rick had been like, Eugene, you overheard them. Is what that guy's saying true? Like, is it just Carter? He'd be like, yeah, I think so. That's what it sounded like. And also the thing about like, oh, he definitely heard. No, I didn't hear. I mean, oh shit. Listen, Carter, I did not hear you planning on killing Rick. And even if I had heard, and I might be inclined to tell Rick, why are you pointing a gun at me? And yeah, I continue to really appreciate that, like with Eugene, like, yeah, sometimes we like might chuckle, but we don't think less of him. I haven't really gotten the sense on the show so far that we're meant to think that, yeah, he is lesser. Like, okay, he lied to them. So have neurotypical characters on the show. It's and he's done what he can to really contribute. He continues to really, you know, yeah. So and I appreciate, at the very start it was because of his, survival, but by this point he clearly does care about the others and want things to work out for them. I think that might pretty well cover. Let's see. There's at least some more. I love the way it was shot when Deanna is, during the big discussion inside the home, and she's like, "We'll do what Rick wants." Yeah, I think that might pretty much go. Oh, right. Abraham. If Abraham wants to do something, you might not be able to talk him out of it. I do agree that, he's like, well, I'll catch up to the car. I mean, the way, as slow as it's driving, I guess you will. And yeah, the the two times where he asks, is this suicidal for you? And then he goes and does that, borderline suicidal thing. Anyway, but and that was also, I loved her performance, but the way it was written, directed, and performed by her when he asks, is this suicidal for you, in the black and white, because the look on her face, and then she says no, and then she walks off, because it's like, I definitely feel like she believes that and wants him to as well, and I think it is also really what she does feel, because she doesn't really come across what, the way she's talking, what she says, and the body language and such. And we're also not doing like body language analysis, 'cause most of that is bullshit. But you know, yeah, the I get the sense that is yeah, and the fact that he feels the need to ask a second time, he is not sure about her yet. And that's a really compelling place for the various characters, for there to be this, like, they're not sure if they trust each other at first. Rick is not sure how much he trusts Morgan, and Morgan is like, I don't know, it's in a way almost kind of comforting. I just like there to be a lock on the door. It doesn't matter that much if it's on the inside or on the outside. Props if you understand that reference, because I heard it in a Danish movie. So there's a pretty statistically significant chance that you have no fucking clue what it is. Anyway, the yeah, and the with Morgan, it is also like, I really want to trust him. I want him to be okay, but we can understand, it's, why doesn't he answer right away? And yeah, and then he saves, and yeah, Rick saying like they have to know how to protect themselves. Yeah, and Morgan points out, you said you didn't take chances anymore. And I think, does that more or less cover? Okay, so there's at least one more thing that I wanted to make sure to say. plotting in the armory is perhaps not the best idea considering how close the food is to it, but I mean maybe that was what they were thinking back in the when they planned the layout for Alexandria's supply system. And if someone plots, someone will hear, and we'll discover who is good at making sure they have scouts out. And I think that there's at least one more thing. Let's see. So as usual, there's some really great action and scares. Really glad to be watching it again. And I think what was the other thing? Let's see. There's definitely at least one more thing. But what was it? The yeah, I thought they did a good job of, like, considering how much of the episode is dedicated to, they are dealing with the trucker walkers, which also, yeah, they are this what's the word? The yeah, the it's a that's one of the places where it's really good to have the sort of flashback scenes, the black and white stuff, so that it's not just watching people dealing with this group throughout, but it also enables them to show that as one of the first things. I do also think it was clever to open the episode with, we're seeing the very end of season 5, and then it fades to black and white, thus telling us, okay, the black and white is right after that. Now, I do understand why some were still confused. I think that pretty much covers... Yeah. Let's see. Right, I also like the thing about, like, we shouldn't be doing this. Well, I'm supposed to be delivering pizzas, so... But that brings us to the thing with the yeah, so there's the thing about, like, one of them is like told, hey, you go back there and you can communicate with us because you have a walkie. Now I'm pretty sure he means a walkie-talkie and he's just using shorthand, but would a baby walker be a walkie? Is that too dark of a joke? I fairly recently passed, I reached a very specific number of subscribers and then passed it. And I don't know, part of me wishes that I had realized exactly when I hit 666 subscribers, because maybe I should have, done something special on the channel to celebrate reaching that number that someone some time ago decided, oh, that's like super evil, and it's like it's a number, though. It's just like it's a symbol 3 times. It's you gotta be careful not to let yourself get distracted by that kind of thing, or you'll miss like real life evil. Like, it is genuinely frustrating right now hearing conservative Christians. They are frequently frustrating, of course, but claiming, oh, the Epstein files, that's like non-Christians. And some of them are trying to target specific groups. I remember seeing one where someone was saying, oh, it's like primarily Jewish people, or I mean, okay, Epstein himself was, but lots of the people implicated in the files are Christians, and there's other faiths in there as well. Like, if anything, something we can take from this is that your faith or lack thereof does not inherently make you a good person. And yeah, I don't know. That's something that we can all learn from and should try to, like, listen, I'll admit, some years back, I tended to trust atheists more than at least conservative religious people. And then, I got some more life experience, and now it's like, you know what? There's, it does not automatically mean that you are good or bad, depending, I'm willing to admit some of the worst people I've encountered online have been atheists, and some of the best ones do have faith. They tend not to be conservative Christians, but, you know, and yeah. Oh, I also liked when so during the meeting at the house, Carter is, accusing Rick and goes over several things, and he does not get very far into it before Deanna says enough. So Deanna gets to enough fast.